Professor Bramble presented a report in 1965 stating that animals should have the right to stand up, lie down, turn around, groom themselves, and scratch their limbs. These became known as Bramble's 5 freedoms and were expanded upon to the current 5 freedoms, which are the freedom from hunger and thirst, freedom from discomfort, freedom from pain, injury, or disease, freedom to express normal behaviour, freedom from fear and distress. All current legislation is built upon these freedoms and incorporates them into the current laws and guidelines. The Zoo Licensing Act of 1981. This act requires that zoos be licensed by local authorities and specifies conservation methods that zoos must undertake, such as education and breeding programmes. The Animal Welfare Act 2006. This places a legal duty of care on owners or keepers to provide for their animals' welfare needs, including the 5 welfare needs of environment, diet, behaviour, companionship and health. The Bali Directive sets out conditions for the import and export of various species which are not covered by other legislations between European Union states. These do not apply to domestic animals or cattle. IAZA, BIAZA, WAZA. These different associations each govern set areas, such as BIAZA governing Britain and Ireland, while IAZA is Europe, and WAZA is the World Association of Zoos and Aquariums. This will govern the rest of these. These organisations provide support for species conservation and husbandry of animals in human care. They also encourage the highest standards from their members and regularly provide training, information and research. The Bali Directive is a voluntary group that zoos can opt into that Indicators of good welfare is that the animal has a good weight and is healthy. The animal will have a healthy gait. The animal's coat and body condition will be in good condition. The animal is displaying typical characteristics of the species, and that the animal is relaxed in its enclosure. Overweight. The animal may be ill, poor coat or body condition, poor gait of the animal. The animal is living in unsuitable conditions causing stress and uncharacteristic actions. Keepers will perform regular checks on their animals and keep ethograms up to date, as well as plan and provide a nutritional diet for the animal and ensure that the enclosures are kept clean. Keepers will also help to keep the ground clean and keep records up to date. They will also give educational talks regarding the animals and conservation efforts. The record-keeping system ZIMS will be used to keep medical information on these animals so that they can be shared with zoos around the world. European stud books. These are records kept of specific species around the world and are used to pair them up to keep the most diverse gene pool. European Endangered Species Programme. This programme is to ensure that endangered species have a healthy backup population in zoos with a good diversity in the gene pool. Nutritional requirements and feeding behaviours of large gibbons in the wild. Large gibbons are omnivores who mostly eat fruit. Additionally, they will eat birds, plants, bird eggs and bugs. They will spend around 1/3 of the day feeding and will travel between different trees finding fruits, insects, birds and eggs, and possibly smaller birds, and then will move on to the next tree. In captivity, the nutritional requirement for large gibbons are that they will be fed vegetables, both raw and cooked, dried and ripe fruits, browse such as willow, banana leaves, mulberry, cereals and grains, egg and chicken, which has been boiled, leaf eater primate pellets by specialty feed. This diet will help them from becoming bored of their diet but also provide all the necessary nutrition. In Camper Down, the Lar Gibbons are fed apples, pears, grapes, sweet potatoes, courgettes, cucumbers, tomato, celery, pepper, chicory, sugar snap peas, fine beans, beetroot, avocado, sweet corn, lettuce, spinach, and 1 egg each week. Food and feed presentation strategies used for Lar Gibbons in captivity, and how this will replicate or replace the species' wild feeding behaviours. Food will be scattered around different platforms, the ground, and possible enrichment furniture, so that the gibbons will need to look for their food and collect it at different heights. Smears can be used as well on poles and platforms, such as honey or peanut butter. This will allow the gibbons to move around the enclosure and also encourages them to climb and find their own food as if they were searching trees in the wild.
Johnny. Come on, baby. Come on, baby, go. Johnny.
Factors which lead to uncharacteristic behaviours. Uncharacteristic behaviours can occur in carnivores, such as Scottish wildcats, if they are not given enough enrichment to stimulate their natural behaviours, such as food being handed to them, over being hidden in the enclosure, or not scent marking their enclosure to stimulate a hunt experience, due to the fact that they cannot be fed live prey. Uncharacteristic behaviours can be caused in herbivores if they do not have the right amount of space to wander and look for their food, such as a gibbon who's only ever handed their food instead of being scattered in the enclosure at various places and height levels to encourage their natural foraging behaviour. The influence of hand rearing. Hand rearing can cause animals to never learn the characteristic behaviours for their species, such as predators not learning to hunt, or for primates to display human characteristics simply just from being around humans too much. Manifestations of uncharacteristic behaviours in captive animals. Uncharacteristic behaviours can be seen with animals waiting to be fed or pacing back and forward to try and solicit human attention. This can also manifest in natural behaviours that are taken to the extremes, such as over-grooming areas or scratching to the point of causing damage to themselves or others. Methods employed to prevent the onset of displays of uncharacteristic behaviours. Animals can have their characteristic behaviours reinforced through smart feed presentation, such as scatter feeding, scent marking, or even placing food at different heights are all great ways to reinforce natural behaviour of captive animals. Giving animals the correct type of environment in their enclosures so that they can exhibit these behaviours, such as places to swing for gibbons, or hiding areas and foliage for species who like to hide and hunt, or just like to hide for preference. Welfare. It can be seen from ethograms that the animals are showing natural behaviours with no indicators of stress, such as pacing or overgrooming. I have also used a welfare sheet to record the welfare of the animals, such as whether they are using the outside enclosure or not overgrooming, etc. The zoo has provided a large outside area with various climbing and swinging apparatus to allow the animals to display natural behaviours. The diet for these gibbons is also highly nutritious and provides them with the energy they need to perform these behaviours. This is all stuff that can be seen in the welfare sheet that is present daily with no action required. The welfare of the Lar gibbons is great. This can be seen through their high activity levels and the fact that they have produced infants, showing that they are not too stressed or unhappy to reproduce. It can also be seen from the welfare sheet, where all welfare questions are being met on a daily basis with no action required. As well as welfare sheets, ethograms are also used to monitor the welfare of the animals. An ethogram is a tool used to evaluate the behaviour of an animal by recording their activity over an extended period of time. This helps to find a base level, which can then be used to identify any problems or concerns regarding the animal. From my ethograms, I have concluded that the mother Lily will rest a lot compared to the daughter Frankie, who is very active. Malaku seems to be the most vocal of the family and will also spend a fair amount of time playing with Frankie. Lily resting and eating is likely due to the birth of the new baby Perry and her spending time caring for him. Enrichment. The enrichment that was implemented was a hanging feeder ball. This was chosen as it would stimulate them as they had to figure out how to get the food inside, and also provide a chance to replicate wild behaviours by having the animals hanging while eating and figuring out how to get their food. To create some enrichment for the Gibbons, I collected various materials such as dog balls, bamboo and rope. I then used a Dremel to cut through the dog balls so that they were in half and tied the rope through them, leaving an amount to separate them. This was then twisted through the sticks so that the balls would close, and once the sticks were pulled out, they would open and the Gibbons would be able to get the food inside. An ethogram was used to evaluate the reaction to this enrichment. The Gibbons seemed very curious and made many vocalisations, which isn't a norm for them. They also spent their time hanging while eating instead of on the floor, so we did achieve the goal that we'd set out for. The effects of this enrichment were as wanted. However, the way to it was slightly different. The Gibbons did seem stimulated by this, however. They opened the ball differently than expected. It did still let them display natural behaviours of hanging and eating, and also allowed them to figure out how to get the food out. If I were to run this again, I would perhaps make it simpler, so that there's possibly just a ball that slides up and down on the rope to open it.